I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Today, guys, by popular vote, you guys voted for the new Holy Ghost album, their first self-titled album, which is released. This is an album that is labeled as a genre called progressive disco. And it is huge right now. You know, Scissor Sisters have been doing this for a couple years, but Chromeo, you know, the most recent album that we did was Cut Copy.
Yeah.
Which Tom and I have been pretty hard on this genre, and I know a lot of you guys out there who like 80s electronic dance sound are in love with some of these albums, and I just want to say that's awesome. I'm glad you guys are. There are certain qualities of this style of music and this genre of music that Tom and I both really like. But Tom and I, on our foundation, are all about songwriting and expansiveness, and we really both favor albums that really take things to the next level. I don't feel that the label progressive disco is actually accurate.
No.
You know, it's a reinvention of a music style that's been around for 30+ years by now. And to tell you the truth, guys, I'm actually glad it's back, because I was just telling Tom before we turned the camera on that right now we have more technology at our fingertips than ever before, especially when it comes to music production. And we can do this style of music much more justice today than we could in the past. And Holy Ghost does such a great, fantastic job. The #1 highlight of this Holy Ghost debut album to me was just how immaculate the production sounded. Like, the beats on this album are just so crisp and thick. The synths are just so focused, so perfectly layered. Everything is just, it sounds so pristine and just perfect. I love that aspect. And this is a great mood album.
Yeah.
Now one thing is that I did want to point out before I turn it over to Tom here is that you have the main factor to me here is that I noticed that really enhanced this sound. It was the authentic drums, and no matter what kind of production style was being put on, because sometimes it's very clean and sometimes there's this big reverbed 80s sound of the drummer doing some sort of drum solo that really kind of enhances. I like it when that happens. It enhances the song, but I just feel like the real drums allows the synths to have more of a presence and mix in comparison to some of the other acts out there. And I feel like if you're gonna do this style of music, you have to have some sort of edge to it of what your take on it is, your niche, for lack of a better term. And I feel like Holy Ghost does a fairly good job of expanding it. But Tom, what did you, before I start getting into my criticisms, what were your main thoughts on Holy Ghost?
Well, first off, I do have to give them credit for just the catchiness of some of these tracks, some of the hooks, because at first it didn't really grab me, but then, you know, some of the individual songs really started to become infectious to me. But I think my biggest complaint about this is just the lack of variety on two different levels. I think it fails to do a whole lot different than what other artists in this genre have done. And it fails to do a whole lot different between each track on this album.
Right.
I mean, I feel like at least with a lot of the other artists that are doing this, they'll have some kind of ballads, some kind of slower tracks. I didn't really get a lot of that. There are some spots, but not exaggerated enough, not really fleshed out enough.
Yeah, the songs are very similar.
Exactly.
And I feel like because of that, the album's stronger in the beginning than at the end.
Yeah, exactly, because those tracks stick out more to you. I mean, who knows? It might have been the exact same way had it just been reversed. I might have liked what are now the last tracks better, because it just gets a little old after a while. I mean, I find that halfway through this album, I'm just going, you know, my mind just goes blank, and I'm like, I've already heard this, because I can only take so much of beats that go,
Yeah, and
if
while
you're not mixing it up, then I just get bored.
Right, and while the drums are very real,
yeah, I like them.
For at least a big portion of the song, they're being very repetitive, not very expansive, and none of the other instruments it's very structured. And one of my criticisms, Tom, was that I felt like Holy Ghost was putting in a lot of rules. It was like they were limiting themselves. The vocals are very there wasn't I don't want to say a lack of effort put into them. I'm sure they were very well executed, but to me, they could have been so much more. This could have done so much more to bring you into the listening experience.
Very safe.
Yeah, it's very safe, and I feel like that you can't really call it This is just, you know, new age or modern post-disco, I guess. You know, I wouldn't call it progressive by any means. I want a little bit more in the department of songwriting.
Exactly. It might be progressive in the production style, but that, I mean, that you really just have to give that credit to technology. I mean, the songwriting here, I feel like just doesn't do a lot. I think a lot of people are going to like this just because, yeah, it is fun. It's fun. Very fun to listen to.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
If you're into that, if you're into this genre, I'd recommend this because you probably won't be disappointed it'll fulfill that aspect of it. But if you're looking for something deeper, I feel like this just doesn't really do it. And that's what I was looking for, was something that would do something different with this sound. And it doesn't.
We're very logical music listeners, and if you are more of a Logic music listener, you're probably not going to love this as much, but still I think there's a lot to appreciate about this album. To me, I'm feeling like an upper 60s, 67. I feel like there's a few things that I would really like to see Holy Ghost do on their subsequent records that would be better than what they're doing on their debut, but it's actually a pretty solid debut album, so I'm okay with it.
I'm actually going to go a little lower than I originally said. I'm going to go 60. Okay. Even 60. It's okay, but I didn't really do a whole lot for it.
Yeah, and so you'll probably get a lot of mixed reactions, but I'm going to be really interested in what fans of the style have to say about this. So please leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
I think somebody from the drawer account. I know, we're running out, but I found the morning in a 4